It's Halloween! Happy Halloween!
Writing will be called out of order. Rules of engagement. My colleagues, 3 rounds for discussion. We will have 2 rounds of questions for the panel, with each senator allotted 5 minutes for questions, not including responses. Time to speak may not be yielded from more than one member to another. A member who yields that member's time on a question yields all that member's time on that question and may not later speak, even if all the time yielded was not used. Section 1.02D3. Reminder, colleagues, if you start to speak, you cannot give the remaining of your time to someone else. Either you give it all or you don't give at all. After completion of the 2 rounds of questions, panelists will be excused. 3rd round is for amendments or comments. Speaking on the bill. Questions shall be confined to the substance or nature of the bill 173. Personal inference as to the character or the motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violation of the general rule of conduct will be called out of order and may result in removal from the hall. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum will be restricted from participating and will be escorted from the room. After complete discussion of the bill, I will allow the sponsor to close. I will entertain a motion for the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole, followed by a motion to rise from the Committee of the Whole, at which time I will report out the bill as recommended by the Committee of the Whole. With that, I'd like to introduce the panel and have them swear in first, and then I'm going to ask the author of the bill to give her opening statement on the bill. Sergeant Arms.
Under penalty of perjury, do you all affirm that any and all information provided today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Mr. Chair, to under oath.
Thank you. Colleagues, Bill 173-37, CR, introduced by Speaker Therese Terlai, is an act to appropriate $15,828,000 from fiscal year 2023 general fund and revenues collected in excess of the adopted levels enumerated in Public Law 36-107, as amended to the Guam Power Authority for a 3-month extension of the Programa Azura pa Itautauta Energy Credit Program, relative to providing customers with $300 credit toward their account. Madam Speaker, I ask you to please give your opening on the bill. Thank you.
Jesus Masi, Mr. Chair, and to the panel who are here today. Thank you for reading the title of the bill. In short, the bill would extend the $100 per month credit for every residential customer of the Guam Power Authority for 3 more months. At the time the bill was introduced, this was on September 22nd, funds existed. There was no hearing held in September. Frankly, I missed this during the budget. Lost track that it was expiring in the next month, October. We know what happened since the bill was introduced, and that was that when we came in for another session for $30 million for the hospital, although that bill did not originally cite this funding source, that's what the funding source that was used in the end. At that time, we discussed the options of the governor to use ARP money instead for the hospital, and I believe that those conditions still exist, and that would allow us to use our local funds to provide relief to the customers. And this is an extension of the credit that began in July 2022. In July, there was a call for emergency session from the sponsor of the original energy credit bill, and that was you, Mr. Chair. And at that time, the plea was that conditions continue, and they require us to work together to alleviate the increase of prices of goods and services for the people of Guam. And we all unanimously agreed to that in July of 2022. That was after the pandemic, but we realized people were still suffering. There was a nation and a worldwide rise in inflation that was forcing people on Guam to choose between power and food. And that is real. That was before, and without anticipating at all, a typhoon. Then came Typhoon Mawar. In fact, we extended, before the typhoon, we extended the energy credit again in December. So we did it in July, we extended it again in December for another 5 months, and then that took us to May, coincidentally when the typhoon struck. And we had not even anticipated a typhoon when we thought the people were in need back then. But we all know, and everyone acted very expeditiously to restore this credit in May. The typhoon devastated Guam, and many homes, the roofs. There are still families, I believe even some of our employees, who have not fully recovered from that typhoon. Not everyone became eligible for even FEMA or even roof repair. And not everyone has been able to restore their homes, move back to the same place. And there were many other expenses that were incurred because of the typhoon. And as we all know, although we are recovering, we meet people every day who have not fully recovered. They're not recovered. And on top of all of this, since the typhoon, we've had another typhoon or another storm. But since that first typhoon, we have had rolling power outages and fluctuations wreaking havoc on our existing. If you didn't lose your appliances in the storm, many people have called our offices complaining about damage to their appliances because of these rolling power outages. As you know, in the beginning, many of them were not even predictable, and now they're trying to put us on a schedule, but we still are experiencing that waving power, the one that really injures our appliances and really makes it unreliable for us to store food. That's been going on for at least 4 months. The reason why I really want to extend this credit is because I believe the people are in need. And this we have found to be one of the fastest, no eligibility criteria necessary, equal across the board ways to give relief to the people. And because of that, I'm asking my colleagues to please help me to find a way to replace the funding source in this bill so that we can give this credit to the people. Sutsumasi, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, we will begin the first round. Speaker, would you like to begin the first round, or else I would move to Senator Blas? Oh, we'll begin with you then if you want. Okay, Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is Mr. Byrne going to be attending? No? All right, so my first question would be that GDOE has said recently that they want the $20 million back that was taken from them for typhoon relief because it wasn't used on DOE. And in August, in the budget bill, we replaced the general fund funding source for typhoon recovery to the rainy day fund. But it looks like from the September typhoon report, what used to be a $20 or $21 million allocation for typhoon became $50 million or close to that. So there was an additional $30 million added. So I wanted to ask BBMR if they could tell us, we know the $20 million came from GDOE. You told us there was maybe $5 million from FEMA reimbursement and something else from another source, but the $30 million was added in September. Where did that come from?
Thank you, Speaker. You were correct with the first couple fund sources having come from funds allocated to DOE. Another 5 million was from a FEMA reimbursement, and I think somewhere in the neighborhood of about 16 or 17 million dollar was from a Medicaid reimbursement. So that's how we got what we have cumulatively for Mawar as it stands today.
Did you say 60 to 7? The Medicare?
Medicaid.
Medicaid reimbursement?
1.6.
Okay, sir. All right. Was that 16 million Medicaid reimbursement, is that reflected on the CRER or no?
On page 9 of the CRER, we give you the amount that we have put together. Basically, it's total $43 million, less, well, in addition to the legislatively required $100,000 that went to each mayor. So it's 45 million that we've put together, and we still have a balance of about $29 million. Most of that's because of the difficulties in getting the mold remediation contract squared away for DOE schools. That's, from what I understand, that's the biggest cost that we still have to be prepared to bear.
All right. But the 16 million, when you received it from Medicaid, is that reflected in the CRER?
No, it was a reimbursement. It's not revenue.
Okay. Is there any other Medicaid reimbursement that you received in addition to the 16 million?
There is a similar amount that is being worked on, but it hasn't been received yet. And I think Mr. Byrne mentioned that the last time we were here. So we were able to get the, if I recall correctly, it's a similar amount of money that we're trying to get reimbursed, but we haven't got reimbursed yet.
When do you expect that?
He's the one working on it, not me, so
right.
I couldn't give you an update.
Maybe if your staff could ask him, Mr. Chair, since he's not here, when we expect the reimbursement of the 16 million Medicaid. So it's fair to say then that there's still 29.897 unspent in the Typhoon Fund from the money that you put there, the 46 million that you put there, and that none of the rainy day fund was tapped for the typhoon, for this typhoon expenditure. Is that correct?
I don't remember tapping any rainy day fund.
All right. That's what our budget law said, but yeah, it looks to me like none was tapped. All right. So are there any additional FEMA reimbursements that you've received since July?
Not that I'm aware of, other than the $17 million that we already spoke about. 16.
FEMA?
Oh, well,
FEMA.
Sorry. I'm not aware of any FEMA reimbursements. As a matter of fact, we're trying real hard to get a handle on where we are with agencies who put in for a public assistance grant, were initially approved, and they're awaiting some kind of favorable decision from FEMA and the money, but I haven't seen anything.
All right, is that alarming to you?
Not really. I mean, we just finished closing out Typhoon Dolphin. See, that's so far ago, you don't even remember Dolphin. So I'm not surprised.
All right, Mr. Burns sent me a letter yesterday where he says, he attached a financial statement for FY 2022. The audit is not yet done yet, and the auditor was in the newspaper today talking about that again and how it's still not done up until now. It was 2 months ago by statute. But in here, in his letter, Mr. Burns says this line. He talks about the fund balance, and this leaves an over appropriation of 23.8 million as the assigned balance. After adjustment by BBMR, de-obligated for expenditures, the assigned balance, parentheses, deficit, is reduced to 4.8 million. Can you just explain what it means by after adjustment by BBMR, de-obligated for expenditures? De-obligated.
When we were here the last time,
I was here.
there was 17 pages of material that I provided. On pages 15 and 16, there were, 13 and 14, recommended appropriation adjustments that we posed to be able to balance 22 and make 23 funds available for the hospital.
Right, and at that time, so you're saying that's what you did?
That's what I remember. It was a bill with no number, no funding.
It did not pass.
The bill passed.
Right, but not the bill that you're talking about with no number, or I don't know what. In other words, I'm asking,
So
you proposed to us at that time that you needed to de-appropriate or de-obligate, and that you needed that to be done by the legislature. So I'm asking you, did you do that on your own? Because he says, after adjustment by BBMR, de-obligated for expenditures.
as I said to the body, and I presented to the body a plan, because there was no plan in the bill for the GMH relief. So we took it upon ourselves to come before you to help and find a way. And that way included some of the actions and were contained in the material that we gave you.
Those were proposals, right? Those were your proposals. But my question to you is, did you do that without legislative authority? Because you told us at that time that you could not de-appropriate without legislative appropriation. That's why you were proposing that to us. There's nothing in the bill that talks about de-appropriating from any other appropriation or category. And so are you testifying today that you did that? You de-appropriated from those appropriations?
I put those sums that we're talking about in reserve. I did not de-appropriate, but I did put them in reserve.
What does that mean?
It means that they're unavailable for expenditure.
Can you read the list of expenditures that you have made unavailable?
Really?
Really, because the people of Guam have no notice. We were not able to discuss those proposals that you had given to us in paper because the discussions were cut off. And nowhere in the bill was that proposal approved. So if you de-appropriated or move them over to some reserve fund, I just want to know by what authority, and please read the list.
Senator, since you want me to do this, or Speaker rather, I'm going to state for the record that we went over this material at length with everybody here. We were excused. You guys went ahead after hearing what it is we proposed. And yes, there was no de-appropriation language, but the path on how to get $30 million available to the hospital was presented. And pages 13 and 14 list the areas in which we said we would need to adjust, make unavailable in order to get to the $30 million.
All right, I remember those discussions very clearly, Mr. Chair. The list was never read. I'm asking him to read the list. Also, in the bill that was passed for the hospital, it says unappropriated. Unappropriated. And he's saying now he deappropriated. So if we could just read the list. It's never been made public.
When it comes here, isn't it made public? When I give it to you, isn't it made public?
We discuss it, but we
No,
didn't get to.
But isn't this material
Please, Mr.
on
Chair, I
your
don't want to
website?
argue. I just want the list read. It's something I think the public should hear.
And I think they should hear that it is available. It should be on your website. So, you know, Madam Speaker, like the last time I was here, came down here to help. Now you're asking me to do things and asking me if I did things that was unauthorized. It's not fun coming down here.
It's not fun being on this side either, if that's relevant, because we're trying to find money for the people of Guam. We're being told at the last minute that when we said unappropriated funds would be used, you used appropriated funds. We're being told that when you take 20 million from DOE, it doesn't get to DOE. We're being told a lot of things. And so please, we've never had the public hear what your proposal and now your action was to deappropriate.
All right, and just to be clear, Speaker Wampat, when she was acting superintendent, agreed to have Homeland be the source of procurement, not DOE. So under her tenure, that $20 million was authorized to be overseen by Homeland to be able to get the repairs. The first item, bear with me because this is 2 pages, $95,360 from the Health Professional Licensing Office, $342,774 from Detoxification and Rehabilitation Services, $201,157 to Inpatient Detoxification Program, aka New Beginnings. $104,000 from Internment Operations and Maintenance.
Veterans.
Veterans Affairs. 1.8 million, $1,826,399 from DPW that was allocated for Village Street and road resurfacing. $413,589 from EPA's regulatory capacity appropriation. 569,000 straight from C&Q operations. 26,100 from.
Mr. Carlson, Madam Speaker, I'm going to have them pause and have them put that on the screen so the public can see this. I'm going to have, we're going to short recess so they can take this page of the report that was presented and put it on the screen, and as he's reading it, everybody can see it. Then we can't escape that. It is visible to the public. A short recess. Committee Hall is called back to order. Now let's see what's on the screen. No. It's page 13 of 16. Is that it? Is that it? Okay. All right. Okay, there. Here you go. Mr. Carlson or Madam Speaker, you can continue reading, but at least it's now in display.
Okay, I think I stopped at C&Q. So 26,100 from the operations of the CLTC, $10,854 from Guam Ancestral Lands Commission, and the big one was the $15 million for the GMH Capital Improvement Fund. Then on page 14, the last one is $563,000 for the charter school. All of these adjustments, with the exception of the $15 million for the GMH Capital Improvement Fund, were appropriations that didn't have a continuing clause to them. So these were funds that were unexpended. So it's not like we were taking money away from operations. It was funds that are available. Again, the audit was supposed to confirm the $15 million, but as the governor promised, the legislature passed the GMH relief bill for $30 million for vendor payments. She made available $20 million from ARP for CIPs. So that was how we proposed to address the GMH issue to the body.
Thank you. To be honest, Mr. Chair, I'm shocked. The language of the bill was very clear, unappropriated. When we were going through budget, not a word was said.
Madam Speaker, I know Senator Barnett wanted to yield his time to you, so I'm going to have him first yield it. Then you can continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I appreciate and respect this line of questioning, and I yield my time to the Speaker.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, go ahead and continue.
Yeah, so as you know, not a word was said during our budgets that money for detoxification was going to expire, that the 15 million GMHA Labor and Delivery Ward Capital Improvement Funds was going to expire. Nothing was sent down from the governor in her proposal for a budget. Nothing was said in the weeks that we spent in here. And in fact, when we had the oversight of the hospital, they talked about using that money and how they were making renovations on their labor and delivery areas and other capital improvement. But I just find it yeah, I'm speechless. That's the first. But it's really shocking because we were so clear. Unappropriated funds, and he did give us this list, but when we didn't talk about it, I thought it was safe to assume, and lo and behold, I thought we were not using it, that was not the proposal that was adopted, because that was not the proposal that was laid out in detail in front of us. And I find it so sad that they're going to tell us, honestly, detox, internment services for the veterans, 15 million for the hospital. How ridiculous is that? We take 15 million away and then we brag that we gave 30 million to the hospital. And I would think that a fiscal team of the governor This is her platform, not just ours. Detox, the hospital, road improvement, even a $1.8 million from village streets. When we went through our budget sessions and our budget hearings, we talked about this money. We asked them, did you spend it? Are you spending it? And they told us about their plans. EPA, regulatory capacity. Even customs. How many times did we come in here about customs? And they were so desperate. Like, embarrassing. We scolded them. We talked to the airport. But we really came down hard on customs. And what did we do? We took $500,000 away from customs. Customs. There's just so much. It's anyways, everybody heard the list. Even though I said we were acting in the dark in the last emergency session for the Guam Memorial Hospital by approving funding source and cutting off the discussion, not approving this list of de-appropriations, I never thought it would be that dark. That's like, it seems like deceit. I mean, who would have agreed that we're going to take the $15 million out of labor and delivery ward appropriation so that we can make up $30 million for the hospital? The CRERs at that time were showing there was excess FY23 money, at least $15 million, enough to cover this power credit at that time, on that day. Do you know what, so today is October, what is it? 26th, it's almost the end of October. Do you have an estimate of what the CRER might show after October? Is there any excess revenue?
No, ma'am. I don't have any preview.
The last CRER showed all the expenditures that were laid out, and I'm really surprised. There's, of all the expenditures to de-appropriate from, some that were left in place, I feel were less important. Okay, is that my time again, Mr. Chair? Oh, that was fast. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you again to Senator Barnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Senator Parkinson? None? Senator Duenas, do you have anything? We skip you, Senator Barnett, because you passed. Do you have any questions for the panel?
Cedars Mossy, Mr. Chairman. Lester, in the recent media reports of the fund balance in excess revenues for the fiscal year 2023, it seems to identify 30 million for GMH. Is that correct?
We made $30 million available for vendor payments at the Guam Memorial Hospital, yes.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out the list that you gave us. Those appropriations were adopted in fiscal year 2022 excess revenue?
It varies, sir. In one case, the very first one, it said that it's the fund source is from 2% general fund reserve. So not everything was from excess revenues.
Okay. Is any item on the list an item that was adopted as the result of the 2023 budget?
2023?
Yes.
I believe that most of this were in the 2023 budget. The heading on page 13 says recommended adjustments to FY22 general fund appropriations that were contained in the 23 budget.
So because let me go over to Luella real quick so that we kind of get a balanced perspective here, just to make sure, because so far, looks like both entities have expressed that there's non-sufficient funds to be able to support this bill. So I'm seeming to remember that what we did was in fiscal year 2023, most of what's on that list, we were appropriating from unaudited excess of 2022. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So if in fiscal year 2023, we're realizing 103 total million approximate excess revenue with approximately maybe 40, 50, 60 that was actually appropriated within the fiscal year?
For 2023?
Yeah. Because let me be clear of why I'm going down this line of questioning. What we did when we basically decided to go ahead and find the 30 million, because when BBR made the recognition that there was an over appropriation in 2022, we basically just said, with or without the list, I think there was an assumption that 2023 unaudited would cover it. So we just said 2023 back. Scrub the books, come up with the cash, get her done. So what I'm trying to say is that if the fiscal year 2022 unaudited revenues are what identified the list, that should mean that fiscal year 2023 excess revenue that was not adopted during the fiscal year should be available for appropriation. Would you concur? Or at least available if we said it's unaudited.
From what the 30 million we established, that was what, based on the numbers, was available for 2023. And what I recall is in 2022, yes, BBR and OFB had the same conclusion that there's 19.1 million over expended in 2022. And so, to cover that, BBR proposed that items need to be deappropriated because in 2024, we did make appropriations about 19.1 million against the 2022 revenues. So from this point, all I can say is the 30 million that we did identify for 2023 is utilized for the GMH that we just passed, the GMH.
Okay. So in order to not continue a number salad, because you've been sworn in, I'm just going to ask you both a direct question on the record. Because I'm going to go back to my original declaration of why I believed we were beating a dead horse last time. Is you can ask the same question 500 different ways, but if we're going to get the same answers from you guys, I'll ask it once. Is it your determination that based on the bill that we passed for the 30 million of GMH, there is currently non-sufficient funds to fund this bill as proposed?
Correct.
Mr. Carlson, is that your declaration? Can I get it on the record?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. So I'm just going to use the rest of my time, Mr. Chairman, as probably trying to verbalize what's in my head. That's a little dangerous sometimes, but at least the way you see it, when we over-appropriated in 2022, that carried forward to 2023. It was assumed basically as a deficit that would be covered. And then when the recognition of those appropriations from 2022, it was needed to be recognized coming forward to 2023, because that's the only way to make those appropriations whole. As a prior appropriation, in order for it to still be valid, it would be required to continue to carry forward the current year unaudited excesses to cover those expenditures. I'm seeing a nod. I think that's pretty close too.
Yes.
I'll listen to my colleagues and see if they can find the money under the cushions, but I think that's enough for me. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Blas? Have any questions for the panel?
No, maybe just one. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Carlson. Thank you for being here. You know, while the bill basically presents a funding source, obviously this discussion can be an impetus to be able to provide an amendment, if necessary, to be able to identify a funding source. Is there a pathway to be able to, for funding for this program in anything that you see?
Unfortunately, no.
Whether it be from previous fiscal year or I mean last fiscal year or previous fiscal years?
We put the same kind of effort into this bill as we did for the hospital bill. We tried to come and look for something. Unfortunately, the CRER, the recommendations that I made for the hospital bill, we took all the resources to fund the $30 million for the hospital. So there really isn't anything, sir.
You know, and I hate to put you in a spot, Mr. Carlson, but you know, there was a recent article in the Pacific Daily News, and the title there basically says this is an interview with the public auditor, B.J. Cruz. It says, flagged federal spending further delays Guam's fiscal 2022 audit. What can we expect in as far as what our finances were once this audit is complete? Do you have any idea?
Could you repeat the question?
What can we expect? You know, I mean, I think that, again, we're trying to find different sources, but I fear when I read an article such as this and listening to the conversations that there may be some unanticipated expenditures that we're going to be held accountable for, or that we're going to have to take care of. Basically, there's a reference in the story about question funding, question expenditures. How does that factor, or how do we, if we can't find the money here for this project, and based on this article here, we're looking upwards of $42 million in question costs, how do we resolve a lot of this stuff?
Thank you for that, Senator Blas. I read the article as well. I think what happened was the initial review had identified some question costs. Those were brought back to the auditor, DOA, and the agency. And the same article that you're referring to basically goes on to state that all the agencies that had question costs had an opportunity to respond to clear up the question. And I believe that most of what it is that was initially deemed questionable has been resolved and that will come out in the audit. I don't believe we're going to have, as a result of the 22 audit, some kind of mandate that we erroneously or we misspent federal money, and then we're going to come before you and ask you for X amount of dollars to pay back Uncle Sam. I don't foresee that.
Again, you know, I use the prelude of, I don't want to put you in a position because obviously it's all conjecture at this point. There's nothing final. Yeah. Okay, I just wanted your take on what the possibilities are and what we need to. Again, you know, I'm just trying to find any clear way. Oh, by the way, the governor's on island, isn't she? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think in the last discussion we had there was a discussion of possibly using ARP monies for this. You think that I can ask you to request you to ask her for?
I know you asked me to ask her, but quite honestly, sir, she was traveling.
Yeah.
So I never got the chance.
But now she's back because I saw her this morning.
Yeah. I saw her too.
I'll ask you to again ask her. Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Senator Parrish, do you have any questions, ma'am?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So can you confirm if there's anything in the rainy day fund currently?
Was that the rainy day fund you asked? I could barely hear you.
Yeah, the rainy day fund.
Okay.
Yes, but I don't know what the balance is.
Does OFB have a answer for that?
I don't have the running balance either, but there's money in there.
Okay, do you know how much was used, or any kind of estimate, or when we last met, what was in the account then?
Yeah, I recall something around 20-some million.
20-some million.
I think during the budget sessions, that's what was.
And was there an appropriations after that?
Yeah, the 2024 Budget Act sets aside a rainy day fund.
Sorry, was there anything taken
an
out since
appropriation,
then?
sorry?
Yeah, so no appropriations,
No.
just 20-some million.
No, remember at one point we were considering that, and then that was withdrawn on using any money for the typhoon. So I know what you're getting at, but no, the rainy day fund is still intact.
Okay.
Whatever money's there is still there. As a matter of fact, several of us had reconsidered touching it. But then again, it's available. So if anyone would like to use it, this may be a good rainy day fund to take care of the people of Guam on power.
Okay, thank you. And then for the FEMA reimbursement, so we're getting a 90% reimbursement. Obviously, it's going to go back to the agencies. Is that correct? Or how is that going to be handled?
It depends on the source. If we use general fund money for FEMA repairs, FEMA associated overtime, then that money goes back to the general fund. It doesn't go back to the agency.
Okay. And how much was spent? I mean, do we have a finalized amount that was expended, or are we still, that tab is still open?
For Mawar,
Yeah.
the only information that I have for you is what's in the CRR, which basically tells you how much we pulled together, how much we expended, encumbered, and what the balance is.
Isn't there a timeline where we had to end the expenditures? I mean, that was my understanding, is that there was a deadline to submit all the expenditures. Is that correct?
There was FEMA had a deadline for people who, like agencies who wanted to submit a public assistance grant. So there was a FEMA deadline, so that, you know, they could understand what was going on and coordinate.
Okay, and then is there a total amount? Do you know the total amount that these agencies submitted?
No, I don't.
Okay, is it possible to get that information, or how would we get that information?
That would be Homeland, because they're charged with the overall recovery and coordinating any FEMA reimbursements.
Okay, Mr. Chair, sorry, if we can get that information. Mr. Chair, I'd like to request if we can get that information from Homeland because the deadline passes in regards to the agency submitting what they spended related to malware. Is it possible to get that information? While we're
No,
still-
it's possible that we can get it, but I don't think we'll be able to get it that soon for what we're discussing today.
call
And we
it-
need to remember,
call it-
okay, whenever we talk about FEMA, nothing happens within a year. Just follow the history. Everything with FEMA is 3 or 4 years out.
Yeah, but there was a deadline, according to Mr. Carlson, that there was
Okay.
a deadline
But-
passed and all the agencies had to submit.
We
Their
can request it. We
expenditures.
can request for the information. We can request for that, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you have anything else?
Yes, I do. I still have time, sir, Madam, Mr. Chair. The other question I have is the reconciliation of the war claims for Mr. Carlson. Do we have any updates on that as far as reconciliation? Because the adjudication through the U.S. Department of Treasury ended last year. And so there was a period of time, I remember one of the committee of the wholes, that there was going to be, I guess the money was going to be brought back to Guam for the money that wasn't used. Has there been any progress or updates related to that?
I think it was Mr. Byrne who said that he believes there may be as much as $7 million that we provided for war claims that they're done, and we should have some kind of access to that at some point in time.
So are we talking about the U.S. Treasury? Because that's a different matter.
I think it was a local appropriation that we
Yeah.
did. Yeah.
Yeah, but for many years, they've been holding on to some of the I guess the taxes that should have been coming to Guam through Section 30 to pay off the war claims. Is that correct?
We don't have any war claims, so we weren't penalized on Section 30 the last year. They took money sufficient, and we believe that they probably have money in excess of what was
Yes.
necessary.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
What is the status of reconciliation on that one?
I don't know the status of that. I just remember Mr. Burns saying that the Foreign War Claims Commission that basically was handling this is done.
Yes, correct. And so the money that's left in excess there is due back to come, less encumbrance or
less 10%
claims.
or 5% because these people charge for their services.
Okay, so then he mentioned that 35 million was paid out. So I don't know if that includes the administration costs.
I don't know either.
Okay.
We, we don't have that money on island as we speak.
Yeah, okay, so, yeah, just to as a reminder, we did include in the budget bill that that money needs to be appropriated through the legislature, and, yeah. Okay, and then in regards to the documents that was shown earlier, that showed the deappropriation of those funds that are gonna go towards the hospital. Yeah, there were other funds. Can you explain what was the rationale for choosing those versus others? Because there's a whole list of other funds that were not touched.
Most of it was based upon the fact that there was no continuing authorization for these funds. And this was adjustments to FY22. And what I recall saying was that we felt comfortable because these authorizations expired, but they're still on the books. And the public auditor was here too, and he said, that's a problem, and, if you can take the time to address these issues, it makes life a lot easier. But we don't believe that what we took was had the authority to be used past the deadline for the $4 million. Because when you take the $15 million for GMH, and we made a $19 million adjustment, we're talking about $4 million. So none of these funds, if I recall correctly, had a continuing appropriation authorization attached to them. If they did, then we would not have brought them to you for consideration.
Yeah, there's some that don't have continuing appropriations.
That was the reason why they were fair game.
Yeah, but I mean, there's some here that are still on the books that weren't appropriated.
That was the
Yeah,
problem.
but they didn't have continuing appropriations either. So what was the rationale of choosing which ones between those that didn't have continuing appropriations?
It just made sense to take ones that the authorization basically was no longer valid.
Yeah, but there were some that I'm sorry, the ones, so we just kind of whittled down the ones that didn't have continuing appropriations. There are some that were selected and some that weren't. So what was the decision point in choosing those that didn't have continuing appropriations? What was the deciding factor?
Well, we needed to get to 19.
Yeah, but I mean, there's others. I mean, why didn't you choose those over the other ones? So like detox, why did that get on the chopping block?
Yeah,
because there's other funds that were not deobligated that did not have continuing appropriations in them. What was the rationale behind that?
I'm not sure that there were many other similar authorizations that we picked and chose from.
Yeah, it's on page 9 of 16.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see what you're talking about.
Yeah, so what was the reason for those not being touched and the other ones?
On page 9, the very first one that we did not touch was a $28,000 balance for the Guam Election Commission. The next one that we decided not to touch cumulatively was $1 million for agriculture. One of them was $400,000 for enhanced monitoring of cannabis, and the other one was $600,000 for a very much-needed slaughterhouse. So we decided to keep the slaughterhouse funding intact because of the need for the slaughterhouse. So that page right there was 3 that they're not, 3 put on the quote-unquote chopping block, and the rationale, most of it is because of the need for the slaughterhouse and hopefully the expansion of business activity through cannabis.
Okay, that answers my question. I think that's my questions for this round. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Pierce. Senator Brown, do you have any questions for the panel?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I did want to ask, because the legislature had appropriated another round for the private sector with the LEAP program, Has the administration moved forward in implementing that? I haven't heard anything about it publicly to assist the private sector further from direct legislative appropriation.
I saw something from Gita to the governor recently. I think they were taking applications and they're looking to the governor for the green light. So the answer is yes.
So has that fund tangible? I mean, I know we can appropriate to the moon, but, the cash is king. So do we know that the funds are actually there for distribution? It's just time's going by. I mean, we're already, the appropriation some time ago, and we're already now, and we're just, next week is November. We're almost towards the end of the year. It's just...
Yeah. If I recall correctly, there's an amount of money, I don't know if it's $15 million on the CRER. I can't remember whether or not that is what it is that's going to be the fund source. I seem to recall it's another fund source.
Well,
but there is another round that's coming up.
Yeah, do you know when that will be implemented? Just like I said, the year, that was earlier this year and the year's almost over. So do we have any idea maybe that, so we know it's tangible? Because it's, time is, I mean, those funds were appropriated with a sense of urgency to get it out there.
Yeah, I'd have to get a hold of Gita to find out.
It would be good to know. And essentially, I mean, from the last time we were here, not that long ago, the week before last, to address the funding for GMH, I mean, you're looking at, the administration had proposed, as was discussed here this afternoon, deappropriating funds from existing appropriations to government projects and government agencies. Are we at that point? Does the administration have any alternate, or are you still looking at additional funds coming in above and beyond, or where are we? Because if we're actually going in to cut into existing appropriations, is the money still flowing, or is that what's going to be necessary if we have any additional things to appropriate, or if we get another storm, or whatever the case may be?
Right now, we don't see any available funds for the extension of the GPA credit.
Would that be the case also? Is it just specifically the GPA credit, or are we just pretty much there for any other major appropriation or major need? Like I said, let's say, I hope not, knocking on wood, this table's old enough to be real wood. If we had another circumstance, another storm that may have required us to appropriate to recover initially, would we have funds available, or are we actually going to have to cut into existing appropriations to do that?
If it was a storm, then you could use the rainy day fund.
Mm-hmm.
But to answer your question, we're showing a $300,000 shortfall preliminarily at the end of this fiscal year for the general fund. I'm pretty confident, very confident that we're still collecting payments, we're still closing out fiscal 23, that this $300,000 shortfall will be eliminated, and we'll end up fiscal 23 in the black, not in the red. But there isn't any money in 23 and in the first 26 days of FY24 to fund anything that isn't already contained in the budget. We don't. It would have to be something that required and was consistent with the use of the rainy day, if, God forbid, something like that happened.
How about the shortfalls that we're experiencing in our special funds? Is that anything we're going to be able to make up to offset, because obviously a number of those particular revenue sources are for specific purposes, and obviously if the cash is not there to fund them, then there's programs and projects that are not going to be funded. Does the administration have any position with regards to that, or how to make up that difference for the shortfalls in the special funds?
On page 3 of the CRER, we also noted the $13 million shortfall for the Guam Education Facilities Fund, Guam Highway Fund, and the Healthy Future Fund that needs to be taken care of by the general fund. So that is another obligation that when you go down the bottom right side of page 3, you'll see how we got an overall surplus of $79 million, and then all the different appropriations against excess 23 revenues. And then we also added in the special fund shortfall and the $30 million for GMH. And we are currently sitting at a shortfall of $308,000.
Of course, we'll see when those funds are audited what we have left. I mean, so the position of the administration then is the funds are not available?
Unfortunately, they're not available.
And I just want to ask, because I mean, if you recall, that's how this whole process started. The governor's State of the Island last year before the election actually proposed offsetting the power bill with a general fund appropriation. So must not be an election year. But anyway, I appreciate your response to my questions on this round. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Brown.
Thank you.
You know, before I go on to Senator Lujan, I just want to have OFB be able to respond in reference to the rain day fund. Because I know for a fact it was brought to my attention about the budget. We identified 50 million, and I'll have Llewellyn explain that, why I believe the rainy day fund is still intact. Llewellyn?
Yes, thank you, Speaker, for bringing that up. There was a section in Public Law 3742, Section 50, that authorized the use of 50 million from the rainy day fund for Typhoon Mawar. But if you see in the CRER, there's already funding identified, which included the 20 million from DOE, the Medicare reimbursements, CARES Act. So as far as we know, the rainy day fund hasn't been touched to fund the Typhoon Mawar. Perhaps PMR could clarify or verify?
I concur with Ms. Llewellyn. We did not use the rainy day fund when we put the Mawar recovery funding together.
Thank you. Senator Lujan, do you have any questions for the panel?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Carlson. How are you doing? Actually, I think I know the answers to a couple of the questions we're going to ask, but I'll ask it anyways. The 30 million that was that we passed, the bill that we passed, 164, I think it was. I forget the public law number now. That became public law. 30 million that was appropriated to the hospital, and I understand that monies have been uploaded already to DOA, right? And those. I guess bills have been forwarded to DOA for payouts, right? So after that, there's monies that was found for that. And I know Senator Chris had asked this question, that based on that we no longer have any funds available. There will be insufficient funds.
That's correct, sir.
Okay. And I wasn't here for previous appropriations, but that's to previous, say, excess funds from previous appropriations, previous fiscal years.
There isn't anything available from any prior fiscal years. That was the whole genesis of Mr. Burns' letter to the Speaker.
Okay. Now, the other thing, I mean, there was a total, I guess, of 50 million that will be given to the hospital, 20 from the ARP funds for infrastructure enhancement, right, or repairs and things of that nature. As of September, there was $212,696,773 the ARP funds. So minus 12 or 20 million, if that wasn't minused yet, that brings us about 193 million in ARP funds left. So I guess the only available funding source at this point, if we were to request, because we can't dictate what to do with the ARP funds, the only source of funding at this point will be requesting the governor to be able to use 15 million from the ARP funds. Is that correct?
I think that was what Senator Bloss was asking.
Okay. So that being said, I mean, you know, because we started out actually in our request for the 30 million in the hospital, we started out with a resolution. So would a resolution help, again, in requesting the governor's appropriations from the for ARP funds for $15 million for the extension of the power subsidy funds for the next 3 months. Well, you know, if the 20 million has been subtracted from the 212 million already, that'll be 193 million minus another 15. That would give us roughly about 78 million. Again, not roughly less than that if the 15 million were to be given from the ARP funds, if the request was made and the governor were able to do that. Would a resolution help to be able to do that?
You know, sir, let me kindly remind you that she has a request before this body for to purchase some property for the new hospital site. She's beginning a informational campaign. So she's still very much focused on trying to get a hospital.
Okay. What does that purchase number look like at this point? What does that purchase? I mean, minus the building. What does the purchase number look like at this point?
I don't know. I heard something in the media about a week ago based upon appraisals and sales on adjacent properties, and there was some estimate about what the square meter cost was and what the size of the property was, and came out to some number, but I can't remember what it was.
Okay. Well, again, if that's, I mean, I understand, understanding that there's that money. I mean, that's the only thing available at this point. I mean, would you agree with that? Then that's the only thing, based on even not having any money left on excess funding. So other than ARP funding at this point, nothing else is available, right? Is that?
There's no general fund money available.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Lon. Senator Titlery, do you have any questions or a few questions for the panel?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here today. I do have a question with Section 30 funding that we appropriated $75,449,000 into our revenues for FY24. Section 30 money comes in September. Have you received that Section 30 money?
Yes, we did.
How much did you receive?
I think it was short, right? I think we informed Senator San Augustine that what was contained in the budget and what we received afterwards, I believe it was short about $1 million.
So we received 74 million? Luella, can you answer that?
She doesn't have the budget with her right now to give you a true number, so she'll call it up and then give you a response.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. The second one is, in this bill, when we're talking, actually, let's go back to the discussion. Everyone always talks about the $20 million for DOE, and almost treating it like, it's 20 million is coming from excess revenue, when actually the 20 million for DOE was coming from revenues from the budget. It was not excess revenue that was used for DOE's $20 million. And yet it seems this 20 million seems to be playing a shell game within the government. We raised the revenues to meet that $20 million. So there's nothing in here that says it comes out of excess FY23 or it's being utilized from FY22 money at all. So I'm kind of confused on that. Why they keep saying that this 20 million is, from excess when that's not what we passed?
I don't think the 20 million's in jeopardy, Senator.
What have you been using with it? Because it's definitely an appropriation to DOE, but you used it for something else.
No, again, just to be, yes, it was an appropriation to DOE. Speaker Wampat at the time.
She's not a senator at the time. This body, makes that decision, not Speaker Wampat, working for DOE. So how did you guys do that?
She asked for our assistance because she didn't feel that the procurement services at DOE were adequate to address. It was her request.
Well, if that's not what the law says. You follow somebody else off the street and tells you what to do, Lester, then listen to what this body passes as a law? That's not true to form. FY21, in this spreadsheet that you brought out to us, FY21, you have here that there is a balance of 30 million, or there was a excess revenue in 21, 30,351,140. What was this money used for?
Please refer to Mr. Burns' letter to the Speaker.
What was this money used for, Lester? Do I need to be louder?
Could you please not raise your voice at me?
I don't know if you can hear me. I just asked what did he use the excess revenue on the 30 million?
You're still raising your voice at me.
Thank you.
I don't appreciate that, Senator.
Well,
You
I
do it
don't
all the
appreciate
time.
you not answering our questions.
I did answer. Mr. Byrne answered
I
the
just
question.
answered the question, Lester. What was this money used for, the 30 million?
It's the beginning balance of FY22. So it was basically used for FY22 expenses. That's what his letter says.
What were those expenses?
I have no idea.
You don't know where it went?
No.
This is excess. Isn't excess money supposed to be appropriated by this body?
It was the beginning balance of the next fiscal year.
It's excess revenue that has to be by law appropriated from this body. So where did that money go? You can't answer that, Lester, because you guys probably just took that money and spent it wherever you want.
And that's not the case, Senator.
Then tell us where, because the law, okay, answer this. Isn't it true that by law, any excess revenue that's generated at the end of a fiscal year must be appropriated by this body?
Yes.
Then where did it go?
It probably went to governmental operations that were contained in the budget.
That was not budgeted.
You know, Senator, you're talking about something that transpired a couple years ago. My whole gist is trying to get you to realize that there isn't anything from 21 that's available.
I realize already.
Regardless of where it was spent, how it was spent, it's not available.
That is very fiscally unresponsible.
It's
And
actually
unaccountable,
fiscally-
and the transparency that this administration has shown to this body and the people of Guam is very short. You've lost the people's trust, especially with their funding. Lester, what about, why is the governor not using any of the rainy day fund? I remember putting aside money for the rainy day fund in couple budget bills back. There's at least $30 million in the rainy day fund. So tell me, why is the governor not going, since you're coming to us and the sky's falling, why isn't the governor tapped into the rainy day fund? And we gave her authority to do so, by the way, by law.
In this budget?
FY24.
My recollection, ma'am, is that it takes 10 votes from this body to move
No. I said in the FY24 budget, we gave the governor authority to use the rainy day fund for any of Typhoon Marwa. So she refuses to go into the rainy day fund. So why is she not touching the rainy day fund if the sky is falling down? And please give me an extra 10 seconds on that, explaining it to him again.
Liquidity is a very hard thing to come by, and when you have it, you should hold on to it for dear life.
Is that a Freud comment or something? I don't get it. Okay, that's a Freudian comment. It's not. You're not answering it, and you're not going to tell me why she's not tapping into that. Medicaid, 17 million will go back into the general fund. Is that what's anticipated? About 17 million according to the CRER report? I just want to make sure. Would that be going back to the general fund once it's reimbursed?
Yes.
It will be into the general fund. Anticipated, we don't know. Talked about the shortfalls in FY23. It came up to 18 million, 18.5 million to be exact, but yet in the CRER report, you're only claiming 13,326,793. Where's the 5.173 million going to come from to cover the remaining?
Senator, you have 3 special revenue funds: the Guam Education Facilities Fund, the Guam Highway Fund, and the Healthy Future Fund that have shortfalls, and that's contained in the Special Revenue Fund report for September. That all adds up to $13 million, and it's here on the CRER on page 3. The cumulative total is $13,326,793. So your question is, how are we going to address the shortfall in special funds? It's coming from the general fund. And those are the only 3 that are short.
Okay, so hold that thought. It's going to come from the general fund. Let's just remember that part. Lester, I received a CRER report for the special funds, and I'm totaling 18.5 million. Why are you saying it's only 30? Let me show you. Healthy Futures Fund is showing 12,379,118. 6,052,546 for the highway. And then from Guam Educational Facilities Fund is 110,888. Maybe my math is wrong, but to me, that came out to 18.5 million. So why is it 13 only in the CRER report?
Are you looking at the September report?
Yes, I am. I'm looking at the CRER dated October 20th, 2023, sent to the Honorable Speaker Chalahi.
All right, Senator. So if you go down, it says revised overage or shortage. So the first column is customs. They basically had a surplus of 3.4 million because of a general fund appropriation. Then the next one is Guam Education Facilities Fund. We're showing, and we agree, because your $110,000 is the same number. Moving to the right, Guam Highway Fund at a shortfall of 836,000. And the next one over is the Healthy Future Fund that had a shortfall of 12,379,000. When you add all 3 of those together, it comes up to the number on the CRER of $13,326,793.
So the $5.2 million authorized deposited from General Fund, Public Law 36-124, the Tax Relief Act. Where did the funds come from there?
You guys cut the tax. So we collected the money, and you guys said, no, part of what we're collecting is going to be used for the gas tax relief.
Where'd the $5 million come from?
You cut the automotive and diesel surcharge. You cut the revenue source.
Right, but then you're adding $5 million.
And you appropriated it.
Right, but you're adding $5 million.
No, we're just showing it to you. You don't add it, it's FYI.
That's where you get 836.
Well, maybe that's the difference, because if you take that out, then our numbers are the same. We're at 13.
Okay, I'm almost done with my last question to hit my 5 seconds. Thank you to the time clock individual who's diligently pressing that button and pause button at the same time. If this bill should pass and the language is changed to say that the funding shall come from the general fund, period, similar to what we've done to other legislation where we just put general fund. If we do that, then the governor will have to try and find the money herself. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I don't think that was a question, but that was a statement, right? Okay. Senator Fisher, do you have any questions for the panel?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Carlson, sitting here for an hour and a half, it seems like the answer we're hearing is, though we would like to give the energy credit, that there is no money to do so. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So there's just no, the cabinet is bare. There's no money to do this, no matter how much we want to do it. Is that correct?
There isn't anything that I am aware of that the
Thank you.
general fund can be tapped for the amount that we're looking at.
Okay. So as I understand it, we don't have the money. I'll say that for the third time. Now we're getting ready to go into a second round of questioning to ask you more questions about this. Do you anticipate in the second round reversing your position and saying, we do have money?
No.
Thank you. No further questions.
I'm sorry, are you complete, Senator Fisher? Okay. Next is Senator Kanata. You have the floor.
So I motion to move out of the committee on the whole, and we'll just...
What?
Well, there's nothing further to ask, right?
Do you have any questions, Senator Kanata?
That's my question. Oh, okay, never mind. Someone else got something else to say. I was on the same message with Senator Fisher. I think if there's no money, there's no money. But okay, someone else has something else to say, so I guess no.
No questions. Okay,
Yeah.
Senator San Augustine, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Simple question. From the previous emergency session, we identified that funds that was in 21 was moved over to 22 to cover as a startup budget, and then 22 goes into 23. Am I correct? I mean, money rolls. It doesn't stay and sit and wait for a rainy day. It doesn't work that way. Okay, that's number one. Number two, it was identified earlier that there in the budget, and OEB did clarify that yes, we authorized to take from the rainy day fund, but nothing was ever taken because money came in and covered that. Am I correct? Based on what OEB reported, because it'll be DOE that would say it, but OEB should be able to answer for both.
We use other sources for the Mawar recovery, yes.
Okay. It being that the audit of 22 has not been released, in the event, you know, I'm always hoping for the best, that the OPA comes out and says, we do have some money. May not be 15, hopefully it's more than 15. I don't believe there will be an objection of the administration that we appropriate that money or even put in this bill that any funds identified, it'll be automatically earmarked, and it kind of commits us to not appropriating anything until we fulfill this energy program. Am I correct? Would you be kind of reluctant, I know, because whatever money we're basically going to tie it all up?
The same article that Senator Blas was referring to, the public auditor, I don't know if he's really hanging his hat on this, but he says he wants to release the audit by November 1st. So we'll know, hopefully, by November 1st, where we stand and whether or not there is anything that can be appropriated.
But, okay, but can you at least verify that you remember that you had mentioned it, that we had overspent, over-appropriated in 22, right? The so-called unaudited? But technically, it kind of broke even right now because why? The audit's not out, but those appropriations are covered. Am I correct? Kind of like covered because of the rolling funds?
I'm not sure I understand what it is that you're saying, sir.
Okay, we appropriated in the budget up to $19 million from FY22.
Yes.
Is that covered? Based on whatever money is available, because it was reported previously that there is money. Even though the audit didn't come out, there is money. Is that 19 million appropriation covered?
It can't be covered.
It can't?
the revenues don't support the 19 million.
Okay?
So even Ms. Llewellyn said the same thing. The revenues basically were insufficient to support the appropriations. So the $19 million needs to get addressed.
But if the OPA comes out and says there's 19 million, that will automatically cover it. Am I correct? If it comes out.
Yeah, but I think the letter to the speaker kind of gives you a glimpse that, that's probably not going to be the case.
Okay, and the letter to the speaker basically says what? There's no money at all? Or there's less than 19?
Basically, it says after adjustments, the assigned balance deficit is reduced to 4.8 million. So basically, you're going to have he's saying that there won't be anything excess. It'll be a slight deficit.
There'll be a slight deficit, correct? 4.8. So in other words, we just need to identify what we appropriated needs to be de-appropriated, correct? Once the OPA audit comes out officially.
I don't think we de-appropriate, sir. I think we just, there's an appropriation on the books that there wasn't, like in years past, when we were running deficits all the time. There were just certain things that couldn't get funded. It was a matter of how much you had, what the legislature authorized, and what you could, when prioritizing expenses, what you actually could pay. So if we didn't have the cash to pay for an appropriation authorized by the legislature, then that never got addressed. So we didn't de-appropriate it, we just didn't act on the appropriation.
Okay. Could you, gosh, if the OPA, he puts his neck out on his head on the line, saying that we could be in a deficit, but he's not officially saying it because he's not releasing the audit.
Yeah.
It's kind of like
Mr. Byrne. That's Mr. Byrne's.
That's Mr. Byrne. Well, I think I'll wait for Ms. Auditor Cruz to kick out the official report because at the end of the day, he's going to say exactly if we are in a deficit or not.
Yes, sir. I agree.
But you know that the deficit is created only if the administration chooses to authorize an expenditures there's no money. That's how deficits are created, right? It just doesn't. Yeah, we're short, we're over appropriated, but as long as there's no money, you don't act on something there's no money. In the previous administration, they just did everything. And that's why there was no money at all for anything. Am I correct?
Yes, there was
action done that should not have happened.
Yeah. In some cases, yes.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Thank you, Senator of San Augustine. Senator San Nicolas, you have the floor.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. It pays to be the last one because all the great questions were already asked. My dad used to say no means no, and I heard a lot of no's. It was true then and it's true now. Sir, would it be, could we, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to find money to give credit for GPA, right? That's what we're trying to do here. And you said time and time again that there's no money. Is it possible to appropriate from fiscal year 2026, or is it kind of too early?
Yeah, I think that's a little too far-fetched, sir.
Okay, so again, there's just no money for this program.
At this point in time, I think the speaker had a valid question. I'm confident that we're going to, when we close the books, address this $300,000 general fund shortfall that we're showing in the CRER. I'm also very upbeat and optimistic that our revenue collections are still going to be very strong. And I know the timing is wrong, and there isn't money there, but there might be money in a month or two.
Okay, thank you, sir. You know, I just, Christmas is fastly approaching, and we all want to play Santa. So, you know, if in that, I guess, that new report, maybe we can go ahead and revisit this, right?
Yes, and again, there may be a lag, but if it's the will of the body and the funds are there, you'll get the support.
Yes, sir. All right, thank you, sir. That's just what I wanted to hear. You know, I'm pretty sure if there was money there, I don't think we would all hesitate here to try to alleviate some of the pressures of the cost of living and particularly the cost of power. Thank you, sir, for being here, and I really appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome, Senator Nicholas. Okay, we're going to go to the second round. I'll start with the speaker.
Thank you. I wish I shared that sentiment that if there was money there, we would be hearing about it. I think it's the opposite. We knew.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, I'd like to yield my time to the speaker.
Thank you, Senator Parkinson.
Thank you, Senator.
Please put 10 minutes.
We're hearing all kinds of things that change day to day, apparently. There were no funds to put $30 million to the hospital unless something was deappropriated, but nothing was deappropriated by the legislature. It seems this administration believes they can deappropriate and they can pick and choose which appropriations carry over, which ones don't. They can get rid of meth rehab by their choice. It's like the policy decisions that we are making here count for nothing. We can keep a slaughterhouse and not repair our roads. The whole list. But anyways, what I want to get to is I want to know exactly what date, because it wasn't done in August, it was done in September, that the $18 million or $16 million in Medicaid reimbursement came in, and when was it allocated for the typhoon?
It had to be sometime after the $50 million authorization was passed, ma'am.
It was passed immediately after the typhoon in May. You know, that's why we get impatient, because that's like a smart answer as opposed to just a straight out answer.
I don't
We're
know.
asking the date because it's important. Let me
I don't know.
explain.
I don't know.
All right. I want to know, Madam Chair, because we passed a law. That was the budget for FY24. It became effective on September 11, very early in the month. And in that budget, we said no more taking from the general fund because of this kind of stuff, because they take whatever they want, they take from DOE, and we said no more. And we said, we are replacing that authority with the authority to take from the rainy day fund only, as you pointed out. We expected the $20 million to DOE to be given back. We expected any other additional sums that are going to be used for typhoon would be taken from this rainy day fund, as the law states, not by some other random authority or non-authority. It really should follow the law. Should is, we don't even need to use that word. That's what the law says, that's what should be done. And I'm asking the dates because really the only thing is if they could prove that they did this prior to September 11, then the budget was already passed by the Guam Legislature, so they already knew what we wanted them to do, and they purposely took that money out of the general fund at that time so that we could not control that money. And they purposely have not used the rainy day fund, although we mandated them to do that and to leave the rainy day, to leave the general funds alone. That $16 million in Medicaid, I don't think they have any authority to use that for typhoon. That should go back to the general fund. That's more than enough to cover the $15 million for 3 mere months of energy credit payments. And I'm hoping that my colleagues can hear that Because I have heard that they can hear there's no money, there's no money. Well, that's not the truth. The truth is there's money. They choose not to use it for this because they want to use it for that. There's money sitting in the rainy day fund that we authorized to be used for the typhoon that they have not touched because they would rather touch our general funds and come back down here and say, we had to take all the money and now there's no money for anything that you want to do. And by the way, we took the FY21 excess as well and we used it for whatever we wanted to do. And we are going to pick and choose which appropriations continue and not. So the truth is that they are using their discretion. And I'm asking that we use our authority. And we did in the budget. And I intend to bring this up with the Attorney General. Honestly, how can you continue to take money from the general fund? But even without doing that, I don't have to accuse anyone of bad intention if it was just an error, if it was just done with, because obviously the BBMR director does not know that we appropriated the funds out of the rainy day fund. He's testifying that he didn't know that. Even OFB didn't know that until I pointed it out to them. So that's an error. But now we all should be on the same page. The money that still sits in the Typhoon Mawar allocation, the balance is 29 million. 29 million. If that's restored to the general fund and replaced with rainy day funds, just that balance. Not even the whole 45, 46 million, but just the balance. If you correct that today, we could give this credit out today. I intend to do that. I intend to ask my colleagues that that's what we do. We just make them follow the law. Use rainy day funds for the typhoon. They've only spent 29 million. None of it apparently on DOE, according to DOE, but 29 million. No, I'm sorry. They've only spent, they have only spent 7 million. And they've encumbered 8 more million. The balance that remains set aside in the general fund is $29 million. It's sitting there for Typhoon Mawar after we said use rainy day funds for Typhoon Mawar. So I'm hoping that that is loud and clear and that the people are not going to be fooled. That if there's a will, there's clearly a way. There are other ways as well. But that's an easy one. And we are also expecting 16 million Medicaid if the rainy day fund falls short for any additional typhoon that you need. I mean, we're still going to get another 18 million in Medicaid. So I say the legislature needs to clearly flex its authority and say we are going to use the general fund money. You, Governor, have control over ARP. It can be used for the LEAP, and we can take that $15 million and give it out in energy repair today. All of a sudden now we're going to fund the LEAP after not funding it for months. After all of a sudden now paying these businesses is more important than giving $100 to families. But we don't even have to do that because the cash is there. We just need to get these guys to do their job. DOA didn't show up. We can't question them. But really, the law's clear. Use the rainy day fund. That leaves us with a balance in the general fund of 29 million. We can use 15 million for this energy credit right away. I appreciate the questions of my colleagues. I think they were very good. I'd like to know, Mr. Carlson, when you said you de-appropriated from that whole list of FY22 appropriations, but you didn't de-appropriate from some of the other FY22 appropriations, you chose them, or the governor chose them, and that I asked you, so you deappropriated and you spent the money, and you said, no, I put it into a reserve fund. And I want to know, what is that reserve fund?
It's not a reserve fund. It's the money is still in the account that it was loaded into, but the amounts are put in reserve so they cannot be accessed. They're not deappropriated.
Okay, see, now we're just going to waste all my time. We went through this on round one. It was very clear on the record. He said he deappropriated the money. He got to choose that. Now he's saying he didn't. It's very confusing.
Yeah,
I really pray that my colleagues can see above
I'm not
this.
committing a crime by doing something that I'm not allowed to do, all right? The sheet that was here was recommended adjustments starting on page 13. That's what we provided to you guys. Nobody said anything about what we were looking at doing. So when you pass the bill, what am I supposed to do? What's the governor supposed to do? It's like, okay, well, this is what we came down here with. It got passed.
That's not what got passed. That's not your bill that got passed. That was Senator Lujan's bill. And it didn't mention the list of deappropriations that you made, and it didn't mention anything except for unappropriated excess revenues.
In the course of discussion, we provided this to you. And
I know, but we didn't even get to that discussion. You remember, it was cut short. So that was not mentioned on the record. In the September CRER, and then I asked you, there's other sources of funding. The additional Medicaid money that's coming in,
yes, but
20,
I don't know when that's going to come.
You're saying you don't know. Just we don't like it. It's kind of like everything's held until you can spend it, and we can't control it.
Don't do the audit thing on me. You know I don't have any control on that.
I'm not blaming it on you, but it is a team, right? And we need to get this done as a government. And it's us who's being told after the budget bill's already passed, and I'm stunned as well that OFB did not ring an alarm that BBMR is going to deappropriate those things if we did not continue those appropriations. Everybody in the hearings was counting that 15 million was also going to go to the hospital.
I made that clear, that the hospital wasn't getting 35. Senator Taitigui asked me, and I said, no, we were going to obligate the 15, and we're going to replace it with 20. So
you also testified to me that you could not deappropriate without legislative authority, and I think that's still the law.
All right.
These other things that you put are appropriations from FY23 general fund revenues in Public Law 3742. Are these all going to be funded? The ones on the list on the CRER, September?
What page are you on?
3.
LEAP, the round one of GPA credit, public health, behavioral health, DOE, those are all going to be funded, yes.
Okay, and then you put 30 million from FY23 excess. But yet you're deappropriating from FY22. And again,
the sheet that I gave you says from adjustments to the 22, but these were contained in primarily the 23 budget.
They were contained, but they're FY22 appropriations. You know what I'm talking about. This is an FY23. You're taking out an FY23 excess. Those were all appropriations out of FY22 excess. It's apples and dimes. But just the last question is, if we were over appropriated in FY22 by 19 million, we still had the FY21 excess that had been banked, put into the balance of the general fund. It could have covered that. There were millions of dollars in excess. So to say there's nothing, there was nothing,
Thank
it's
you,
really
Madam
wrong.
Speaker. Your time is up. Thank you. Senator Barnett, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Oh, man. You're giving me gray hairs, Lester. It's just so confusing. I mean, just looking at this list of these deappropriations, very critical services, detox, rehabilitation, taking money from New Beginnings when we are losing a crystal methamphetamine epidemic. Taking money away from veterans' burials, of all things. Taking money away from village street repair. Taking money away from protecting the environment. Taking money away from customs and quarantine, which we need customs and quarantine to remain whole to help us fight this crystal methamphetamine epidemic. Taking money from the Chamorro Land Trust. The Guam Memorial Hospital. It just kind of looks like the way this list was put together. It's, you know, let's take money from the agencies that are overseen by Adelupe's most hated senators. And then we hear this rhetoric about the justification for taking $20 million from GDOE because the former superintendent agreed to it, but I don't think that you can produce a single shred of paper that proves that.
You think so?
I don't know.
I have an email. I memorialized it.
I think the point is, no matter what the previous superintendent may or may not have indicated to Mr. Carlson, the current superintendent
The current superintendent,
excuse me, sir. The current superintendent is asking for the money back.
Only now.
Yeah.
Only now, after Maria Gutierrez.
After you guys put him through the ringer with your little political meeting up there at Adelupe.
Not me.
And it's very frustrating, you know. Por favor. All we hear is no, but that's every time we get Lester and when Mr. Byrne bothers to show up, that's all we hear until Speaker shines the light. And she's shown in her previous comments, not only is there money to help our people, she's showing us how to get to it. And so I know my colleagues, all they're hearing is munga, tesinya, but I hope they hear what the Speaker said about that funding. And I hope that we can come together and pass this much needed credit for our people, because the need is very real. I mean, some of my colleagues in here might not feel that need, but let me tell you, the people of Guam are definitely in need. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome, Senator Barnett.
Not always known.
Senator Lujan,
Stretching the truth.
you have any questions? None? Senator Brown, any questions?
I'll defer my time to you if you have more questions.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Senator Brown. Senator Sabina Perez.
Yeah, I have no questions. Thank you.
Senator Fisher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Carlson, we're on round 2. Did you change your answer?
Nope.
Thank you.
We're going to thank you, Senator Fisher. We're going to take a short recess so that I can sit on the floor. We'll take a short recess.
It's Halloween now. Happy Halloween!
Committee host, call back to order. Senator Tadui.
It's probably be the shortest time I've had, so I'm just going to ask Mr. Chair that we get that information about Typhoon Marwa and when the deadline was that Senator Paris had brought up earlier. I tried to make a call to Charles Esteves, but I couldn't. But I'd like to get that information. The second one is a request from the administration as well, and within the next 3 days, if we can, or at least 1 week. To find out where that excess FY21 $30 million went to and what it was expended on. I appreciate that. Other than that, Mr. Chair, I think we have money in the rainy day fund that should have been utilized instead of using the general fund, the opportunity that's there. We have Medicaid that's reimbursement coming, anticipating of $17 million coming our way. And we know that Section 30, I think it was just shy by 1 million. And there still is, it's still very quite, okay. Lester, you have a
Yeah,
comment?
sorry. We actually got a little bit more than what was appropriated.
By Section 30?
Yeah, I misspoke. I'm sorry. It's like the budget is...
75 million?
Yeah, hang on 1 second. We got 76,195,730, and what was appropriated was 75,449,486. So roughly 600,000
Additional.
additional.
Well, that's good news then. At least we're not negative. So that means that I'd really like to know where that excess FY21 $30 million went to. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
That being said, my colleagues, we completed the second round. We'll now dismiss and thank the panel for being here today. Thank you, Mr. Carlson. Thank you, Llewellyn. And we'll have a short recess so they will leave, and then we will go into the third round. Please, my colleagues, while we're on a recess, before I call in the third round, get your amendments in, or else I'm going to call it out of order. Okay, so we're at recess at this point.
It's Halloween. Happy Halloween. It's
into the general fund. So I believe that that is available to us to appropriate for this purpose and it has not been spent either for the typhoon. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I ask my colleagues for their support.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Does anyone like to comment on the amendment? If not, oh, yes, Senator Tadwi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I stand in support of this amendment. It's obvious during our discussions earlier with BBMR, is claiming that the sky is falling when we've actually identified several areas in which there is funding from Medicaid. We've got additional million from Section 30. That was 17 million. And then there's the rainy day fund, which the governor has the authority to utilize for Typhoon Marwa instead of tapping into the general fund. So for anyone to say that there's no funding, that's not true. We haven't even touched the FY22, and that's why they're putting a negative. They keep saying that there's a negative, we've overspent. There's a negative 19 million. That's because the audit hasn't come out. If the audit comes out, then that 19 would actually go into the black instead of the red. So this is a way for the governor, who seems to be playing a shell game with the people's tax money, the funds, that, if she's doing that, then let's call her out. We'll give her the authority to, authorize the expenditure for this. So I stand in full support of this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tyree. Does anyone else like to comment? If not, are there any objection to this amendment? Senator Brown?
I don't know if I was here this afternoon with all this back and forth here, but I also want to make sure we're making fiscally responsible, decisions, even though I'm not sure sometimes what's coming from the administration is factual. But I do have concerns if we're just going to say general fund. We're back to where we used to be, and it doesn't matter whether money's there or not. We're just going to pass legislation to say, well, just take it out of the general fund, dump it on the governor. I mean, I'm no great fan of the governor or how she's run a lot of their administration, but at the other end, I don't know that we're being responsible. I mean, do we have the money available to actually continue this program, which granted, I think everyone values the benefit. I mean, we all have gotten this benefit on our power bill, and I certainly can appreciate receiving it and what the difference is going to be when it's not there. But I think we also need to make responsible decisions. I mean, I'm not going to say on most of the appropriations, when I've seen this in the budget, I've objected to these type of appropriations, especially if we haven't defined where the funding source is. I've objected to the excess funds if we haven't verified that the funds are there. So I have reservation. I have no problem with the intent of what is desired by this bill to extend another 3 months, but at the same time, I'm very concerned about whether or not the funds are there. And I think if we're just going to play back and forth with the administration and lead the people down a road where there's no surety in whether or not they're going to receive this funding, I don't know what the gain ultimately is going to be there for the people. So with that reservation, Mr. Chairman, I have reservations about supporting this funding source. Thank you.
So that would be an objection then. Thank you. We will now move to vote on the amendment. There is one objection. All in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, let's see. Motion fails. You need 8. My colleagues, we'll now move to the
I move to
comments.
reconsider, Mr.
Reconsider?
Chair.
There's a motion to reconsider. Any objection to the motion to reconsider? There being none, we'll now ask for another vote.
Yeah,
If I
could just add, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, we passed out the typhoon report earlier. And I just want to show my colleagues that there's a balance on there of 29 million. That's unspent. that balance, there's no special fund for Typhoon Mawar. This is just money that's set aside. And as BBMR testified, 16 million of the 29 unspent set aside was from Medicaid. So I'm just asking my colleague to please reconsider that Medicaid money is available. It's concrete, it's there, and it's unspent. And they also have the rainy day fund completely available to them. So the money's just sitting there. So again, the cash is available. So I really beg my colleagues to reconsider. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, there is an objection currently. All in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. In favor of the amendment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, still 7. Motion fails. Madam Speaker, do you have a motion to rise from the Committee of the Whole? Or you want to suspend discussion?
Yeah, I move to suspend discussion until tomorrow, and we recess until tomorrow at 10.
All right. We are now going to stand at recess until tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Objection? We'll stand at recess until tomorrow at 10 o'clock. My colleagues, see you all tomorrow at 10 o'clock.
It's Halloween!